December 26, 1943, 0840 in the morning, somewhere in the Arctic dark north of the Norwegian coast, in a sea running heavy under a sky that will not turn light for hours. Aboard a British cruiser, a radar operator watches a smear of light bloom on his screen at 35,000 yards. 19 miles away, closing fast, is the most dangerous surface warship left in Hitler's navy. The battleship Scharnhorst, 9 11-inch guns, a belt of armour more than a foot thick, a ship built to outrun anything that could outgun her, and outgun anything she could not outrun. The cruiser that finds her carries 6-inch guns and a belt of 4.5 inches. On paper, it is no contest. On paper, this cruiser should not even be here. 4 years earlier, the Royal Navy had nearly struck her off the list. Her back was broken, her keel bent, her engines torn from their mountings by a single mine. Men who saw her in dry dock thought she would be scrapped. Instead, she was rebuilt. And on this black December morning, the ship they almost gave up on is the ship that finds the Scharnhorst first. Her name is HMS Belfast. This is how the broken cruiser sprang the trap. To understand why Belfast mattered, you have to understand what she was built for. In the late 1930s, Britain needed cruisers that could do everything at once. Protect trade across oceans, screen the battle fleet, fight enemy cruisers on equal terms. The answer was the Town class, and Belfast, laid down at Harland and Wolff in the city that gave her the name, was the finest of them. The largest and most powerful cruiser the Royal Navy had yet produced. 12 6-inch guns in 4 triple turrets, a hull built long and fast. When she commissioned in August 1939, she was a statement of intent. The war was 11 weeks old when that statement nearly ended. On November 21, 1939, Belfast left the Firth of Forth for a routine gunnery exercise. At 2 minutes to 11 in the morning, she passed over a German magnetic mine, laid weeks earlier by a U-boat. The explosion did not tear a great hole in her side. It did something worse. The shock lifted the ship, whipped her hull like a struck rod and broke her back. Her keel bent upward. Her machinery was thrown out of alignment. Engines wrenched off their mountings. One man died of his injuries. The ship herself was, in the language of the dockyard, broken-backed. At first, the assessment was grim. Many believed she was finished, a constructive total loss, fit only for scrapping barely 3 months into the war. She was towed to Rosyth, laid up, and quietly written down. It would have been the easy verdict. A new ship, some argued later, would cost less than saving this one. The Royal Navy chose to save her. And here is the decision that made the difference at North Cape. They did not simply patch Belfast, they rebuilt her. At Devonport, her hull was straightened and strengthened. Her armour was extended. To carry the new weight and cure the stability problems, the dockyard worked great bulges into her sides, widening her beam from 63 feet to nearly 69. She came out heavier, stronger, and steadier than the day she was built. And she came out with something the ship of 1939 never had. A modern suite of radar. That is the transformation that matters. Remember it when the guns start firing. The mine that broke her back bought her 3 years in dockyard hands, and she emerged not as a relic of the old Navy, but as a warship built for a new kind of fighting. One decided not by the human eye, but by the electric pulse of radar in the dark. Now the specifications, and only the ones that will matter before this is over. After her rebuild, Belfast displaced around 11,500 tons, the heaviest cruiser in the fleet, 613 feet long, capable of 32 knots. Her main battery was 12 6-inch guns, 4 triple turrets, 2 forward and 2 aft, able to throw a wall of shells 8 rounds per gun every minute. Her belt was 4.5 inches of armour, useful against another cruiser, nearly meaningless against a battleship. But her signature weapon was not a gun. It was the Type 273 centimetric radar, a set that could pick a capital ship out of Arctic darkness at more than 20 miles, through snow, through night, when no lookout on Earth could see a thing. In 1939, that technology barely existed. By 1943, Belfast carried it into battle. Hold that thought. Everything now turns on it. By December 1943, Belfast was flagship of the cruiser force covering the Arctic convoys, the brutal supply run carrying weapons and food to the Soviet Union around the top of Norway. Flying the flag of Vice Admiral Robert Burnett, she led 2 other cruisers, the heavy cruiser Norfolk and the light cruiser Sheffield. Together they were Force 1. Their job was to shield convoy JW-55B 19 merchant ships steaming east through some of the cruelest water on the planet. The Germans took the bait. On Christmas Day, the Scharnhorst sailed from her Norwegian anchorage with 5 destroyers to fall on the convoy. What her admiral, Eric Bay, did not know was that the British had read his intentions. Far to the south, Admiral Bruce Fraser was steaming hard to cut him off in the battleship Duke of York. The convoy was the lure, Scharnhorst was the prey, and the jaws of the trap were about to close in the dark. At 0840 on the morning of December 26th, Belfast's radar found her. 35,000 yards. The German battleship had lost her own escorting destroyers in the storm and was hunting alone, blind in the darkness, unaware that a British cruiser was already tracking her every move on a glowing screen. The cruisers closed. At around 0924, Belfast fired Starshell, hanging brilliant white light in the sky above the enemy, and Force 1 opened fire. Norfolk's 8-inch guns found the mark. One shell struck Scharnhorst forward and carried away her main radar antenna. It was a small hit with an enormous consequence. In one blow, the German ship was blinded. From this moment on, Scharnhorst had to fight in the dark by muzzle flash and guesswork, while the British tracked her by radar with cold electric certainty. The most dangerous ship in the German Navy had lost her eyes, and did not fully understand that she had. Scharnhorst did what she was designed to do. She used her speed and ran, breaking off to the south, faster than the cruisers could follow in the heavy sea. And here Burnett made the decision that would define the battle. He did not chase. He judged that Bay would swing around and try again for the convoy, and rather than pursue a faster ship into the dark, he placed his cruisers back between the enemy and the merchant ships. Some questioned it in the moment. It was exactly right. Just after noon, it was vindicated. Belfast regained radar contact as Scharnhorst came back toward the convoy, precisely as Burnett had predicted. The cruisers engaged again. This time, the German ship fought back hard. Her 11-inch shells found Norfolk, smashing a turret and knocking out her radar, killing 7 men. Fragments the size of footballs rained across Sheffield. The cruisers were outgunned and they knew it. But they had done their work. Scharnhorst turned away once more, running for the shelter of the Norwegian coast, and now the trap truly closed. Because as she ran, Belfast followed. This is the part of the story the size of the guns will make you overlook. For the next 3 hours, the battle was not won by shells. It was won by a cruiser holding a radar contact in the dark. Belfast shadowed Scharnhorst from roughly 7 miles back, hour after hour, feeding a steady stream of positions, courses and speeds by radio to Admiral Fraser closing from the west. The blinded German ship was running straight toward a battleship she could not see, and the ship guiding the executioner to her was the one they had almost scrapped in 1940. It was dangerous work. As Sheffield fell back with a broken shaft and Norfolk dropped astern with her damage and a fire aboard, there came a stretch when Belfast shadowed alone. One light cruiser, holding contact on a battleship that could have blown her out of the water with a single accurate salvo, staying just far enough back in the darkness that her radar could see what the enemy's ruined eyes could not. She did not lose the contact. She did not let go. If you are finding this as gripping as I do, a quick subscribe genuinely helps the channel keep making these. At 17 minutes past 4 in the afternoon, in full Arctic night, the Duke of York's radar picked up Scharnhorst at 45,000 yards. The trap was sprung. Belfast fired Starshell to light the target. At around 10 minutes to 5, the Duke of York opened fire with 14-inch guns at 12,000 yards, and her very first salvo struck home, wrecking the forward turrets and the aircraft hangar. Scharnhorst, still fast, still deadly, ran east into the dark with British shells walking across her. For a time, her speed looked like it might carry her clear. Then, at 20 past 6, a 14-inch shell punched through her armoured deck and destroyed a boiler room. Her speed collapsed, and a ship that could not run was, at last, a ship that could be caught. British and Norwegian destroyers raced in and fired torpedoes into her flank, then more torpedoes and more. Belfast closed to add her own, illuminating the target, firing her 6-inch guns into the burning hull, moving in to make a torpedo run of her own. She never needed to complete it. At 7:45 in the evening, battered by shell fire and torn open by torpedoes, the Scharnhorst rolled over and went down in the freezing Arctic Sea. Of a crew of 1,968 men, 36 were pulled from the water alive, Over 1,900 were lost. Admiral Fraser signalled Burnett plainly over the radio. "Well done, Bob. Now be fair about what happened here, because the truth is more impressive than the boast. Ship against ship, Belfast should have lost. Scharnhorst was 3 times her size. Her 11-inch guns outranged and outweighed Belfast's 6-inch by a brutal margin, and she proved it against Norfolk, wrecking a turret and killing 7 men with a single hit. Her armour could shrug off a 6-inch shell that Belfast's belt could never have survived in return. And time and again, her speed let her simply leave the cruisers behind. In every category a spec sheet measures, the German ship was superior. But battles are not fought on spec sheets. They are fought in specific conditions, on specific nights, and this night belonged to the ship with better radar. British centimetric radar could see in the dark. German radar, once Norfolk shot it away, could not. From that moment, Scharnhorst was fighting men who could see her while she could barely see them. Add to that numbers and tactics, and Burnett's cool refusal to chase, and Fraser's advantage of knowing his enemy was even at sea. The Germans had the better single ship. The British had the better system, and the system won. That is the pattern this channel keeps finding. Critics measured British warships by the size of their guns and the thickness of their armour. Combat measured them by results. At North Cape, the results were absolute. There is a verdict from the other side worth hearing. After the war, it was the German Navy itself, in the person of Grand Admiral Dönitz, that drew the real lesson from the loss. Surface ships, he acknowledged, could no longer fight without effective radar. The Scharnhorst had not been beaten by a bigger gun. She had been beaten by an enemy who could see in the dark and had guided the killing blow onto her while she groped blind toward the guns. The ship that did that guiding, that held the contact through 3 hours of Arctic night, was Belfast. So return to where we began, to the cruiser they nearly scrapped in 1940, the one with the broken back and the bent keel and the engines torn off their mountings, the one a new build would have been cheaper than saving. The Royal Navy saved her anyway, and rebuilt her, and gave her radar. And 4 years later, that broken-backed cruiser was the ship that found the Scharnhorst first, drove her off the convoy twice, and shadowed her into the guns of a waiting battleship. The critics who wrote her off were wrong. The dockyard verdict that called her a total loss was wrong. Every judgment that measured her by the mine that broke her, rather than the ship she was rebuilt to be, was wrong. She did not sink the Scharnhorst with the weight of her broadside. She sank her with the thing no one could see: patience, radar, and a refusal to let go in the dark. You can still visit her. HMS Belfast is moored on the River Thames in the heart of London, a museum ship, the same hull that held that contact through the Arctic night. Walk her decks and you are standing on the cruiser that would not stay broken. Admiral Fraser said something that evening to his own officers about the enemy they had just destroyed, that if they were ever called to fight against odds many times superior, he hoped they would fight their ship as gallantly as the Scharnhorst was fought that day. It was a generous word for a beaten foe, but the deeper truth of North Cape is the one this channel keeps returning to. The Scharnhorst was the better ship on paper, and she lost, because a cruiser once written off as scrap had been rebuilt into something the paper could not measure. If you want to see how the killing blow was actually delivered, the story of the battleship at the far end of Belfast's radar plot, watch our film on HMS Duke of York and the guns that finished the Scharnhorst. The broken cruiser found her. The battleship ended her. Together they closed the trap on the last great warship of Hitler's surface fleet.